Great. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the 4 p.m. session at the MACH Haus at NRF 2023. Thanks for joining us. Delighted that you're all here. I've quite an interesting cast of characters here to my left, and we're going to interrogate them for the next few minutes and see what we can find out from them. My name is Rory. I'm a co-founder at Amplience, who are one of the founders of the MACH Alliance. So thank you for allowing me to host today. And I'm going to ask these fine gentlemen to introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Guillermo Rauch, and I'm the CEO and founder of Vercel. We're the company behind Next.js, and the value that we bring to the Mac ecosystem is we help companies create the fastest and most dynamic front ends that seamlessly connect into any data source or any backend, many of which of those backends are here today at the event.
Thanks, Guillermo. Hey, folks. My name is Gireesh Sahukar. I'm the VP of Digital at Dawn Foods. We are a global manufacturer and distributor of bakery ingredients. We make all things that a bakery needs, donut mixes, cake mixes, filling, icing, glazing, anything that a professional baker needs, we manufacture and distribute those things to the bakers.
Hello, my name is Ilya Antipin. I'm a technology consultant from EPAM Systems. We are a digital partner helping many enterprises around the world to do the MACH transformation. One of the co-founder of MACH Alliance.
Great. So I thought this afternoon we might start with the customer story, and for that I think we'll go to Gireesh, because bakeries and food services businesses not typically considered at the cutting edge of technology, Gireesh. So if you wouldn't mind to enlighten us, how come you're on this MACH journey? What were you hoping to achieve by doing it? And just could you give us a little background onto your evolution into MACH, if you don't mind?
Sure. So we started, I took this role about 3.5 years ago in the summer of 2019 when I came to Dawn Foods. The way Dawn did business with our customers, who are all small mom and pop bakeries for the most part, was we would have a sales rep go to the bakery. They would walk through the storage, see what that customer had left in storage. You know, they have 3 bags of cake mix, 2 bags of donut mix, 2 pails of icing, glazing, etc. And then they would write down what that baker needed to make and sell their products to their customers for the next week. Confirm that with the baker, then go on to the next bakery. And when they're done with their day, they would take all those handwritten pieces of paper to the warehouse. The warehouse would pick, pack, load those orders onto a truck. The truck would go next day and deliver to the bakers. As you can imagine, this is late 2019, and our customers are asking, why are we doing business when your customer shows up? Why don't you offer self-service methods like maybe e-commerce to help us do business with you better? Give us some transparency into what your products are, what pricing is, what inventory levels do you have, etc. If you understand anything about a professional bakery, it is that the bakers work from around midnight to 8 a.m. Our salespeople work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So the moment our salespeople are stepping into a bakery, that baker is tired, exhausted. He's worked all night in a 85, 90-degree kitchen. He wants to go home and sleep. He does not want to talk shop with anybody, right? So their self-service needs were born out of that self-preservation, if you will. And they wanted, and they'd been demanding for several years for those kind of self-service options. So Dawn realized this. Dawn created a digital initiative and hired a chief digital officer. If you've not heard from Bob Howland, he's an advisor to the MACH Alliance.
Yes,
please do so. Bob came in. Bob's a veteran of e-commerce, starting e-commerce. He's done this for over 30 different companies in his past, and he turned around and recruited me to come build this digital business with him. So I came on board. We looked at a whole bunch of things, and we said, we understand where the technology is today in the 2019 timeframe, which was basically a whole bunch of monoliths, and then there was an emerging set of vendors that were redefining or trying to create a whole new way of thinking about technology and leveraging technology into the future. It sounds like rocket science. in 2019, but it really wasn't because APIs, especially REST APIs, had been around for several years. Some of the largest e-commerce sites had already gone full e-commerce through APIs for the better part of 2010s. And some of the other technologies were fairly mature. Cloud as a service was a good 10, 12 years in. So people had a lot of the ingredients to make the next generation of software and ISV proposition work and work really well and work in the context of providing the ease of use of the services and take away the complexity of managing software that previous generation monolith platforms had to, you had to do as a practitioner. So we looked at the entire ecosystem and we said, we will take these new sort of approaches and new architectural patterns because we think this is the future in the 3 to 5 year time frame that we will own and operate e-commerce that we were starting out the journey on in 2019. That throughout that 5-year journey, we would have been looking at more and more of these technologies and leveraging these technologies. So we said, we're going to go there, and we're going to start with that approach. And we didn't discount any of the monoliths. They have great install base, they have great reputation, they have great references, they have great use cases, they satisfy a whole lot of needs. So we kept them on our radar. And what we then did was to make sure that as we evaluated all of these things, we said, what makes sense for Dawn Foods for our digital ambition? Again, this may apply to companies with similar ambition, may not apply to somebody who just wants a e-commerce presence, right? If you just want a storefront, there are hundreds of solutions outside of this arena, outside of MACH Alliance, that provide all of the flexibility and the capabilities that can get you e-commerce. This is not the only way, but this is the way for businesses that have digital ambitions. And our digital ambition was to be a digital business. So for us, this approach made sense. And we put together a stack. And that was late 2019. We started 2020 implementing the stack and with the goal of going live by July 2020. We also were doing a couple other things. We were opening up a brand new office, which we called the Digital Innovation Hub that I run today. And we were hiring a team to build and operate and enhance the platform over time. As we were doing this, COVID happened, so we had to scale back some of these ambitions, which meant we had to take a hard look at what are some of the things that we can execute, what we cannot. And in that, we said, our digital journey is not negotiable. We still need to do it. Because of that, we said, the technologies we have chosen are able to be used and worked on from anywhere. Let's go remote. And let's hire the people in and around where we live, which happens to be Boston for me. So we hired a team in and around Boston. But we walked away from opening up an office. And in hindsight, that feels like a great decision because doing these 3 things, where you're launching e-commerce, hiring a team, and building an office, from anyone who's done it, will tell you, do one of these things in a year, don't do all 3. Yeah. Sure. And we had chosen to take on all 3, and luckily we walked away from one of those 3. We ended up launching on time July 1st, 2020, and we've been live for a little over 2.5 years on the MACH stack. MACH Alliance came along shortly after we launched, and when we started having a conversation with Kelly and some of the MACH Alliance members. Fortunately for us, all of the vendors that we were working with, our partners, were all founders of MACH Alliance. So that worked out well, and we started asking questions. Hey, this is great. What about practitioners? They said, oh, hold on a second. We have something in mind. We'll announce it shortly, and the ambassador program was announced, and we applied right away, and I was one of the first ambassadors in the alliance.
Yeah, so Gireesh has done a ton of work as an advocate on the advocacy side of the business for practitioners. So we kind of thank you for that. We'll come back to some of the outcomes and results a bit later. But before we do that, I wanted to get Guillermo in on our little discussion here. I don't know if anyone heard, but Argentina recently won the World Cup. So
Yes.
Guillermo's just back from celebrating that. He's still a little hoarse.
We're still celebrating.
We're still, yeah. So we'll think back past football for a minute, and I'd ask you if you could you give a quick oversight of the founding story and the why and the wherefore of Vercel, just for the audience here who are not aware. Just give us a little insight into what you guys are up to, and we'll dig a little deeper then.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born and grew up in Argentina, but shortly after my teenage years, I moved to San Francisco and got into the startup world. I built up my first startup, sold it to WordPress.com, the parent company
Familiar
of
with them?
WordPress Automatic.
Yeah.
And then when I left, I knew that I wanted to go on the entrepreneurship journey again.
Yeah.
And I wanted to use the best practices at the time. This is in 2016. I wanted to use the best way to build a website, because I wanted to build our own website. I was like, hey, simple landing page for Vercel.com. And at the time, there was this duality of the best way to build the front end that was emerging out of Facebook was React. It was a revolution in how we think about the world of UI, very much like Composable business on the architecture and backend side. The world of UI became Composable through components. And now we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time we have to build high-performance UI. So I saw that and I was like, wow, that's really exciting. I'm going to use that, of course. And then on the infrastructure side, I knew that I wanted to deploy a global website. I wanted that website to be fast, reliable, secure, everywhere. So the hot thing coming out of Google was Kubernetes. And when I started kind of looking at the experience of combining this cutting-edge technology, I was quite frustrated. It took me months of, on the React side, combining compilers and bundlers, and it was almost like I had to take a PhD to deploy a modern website.
Right.
And a one that was fast and reliable. And that the nice thing is all these enterprises, all these great companies were open sourcing their technology. So of course we're grateful to that, but for the rest of us, combining that and reusing that technology proved really challenging. So when you were sharing the story of Dawn Foods and that consumer that today expects a digital experience that is top-notch, that demands e-commerce, we have to remind ourselves that that consumer is also going to Amazon.com to purchase their own things when they go home. And that they figured out, that website figured out how to be fast. They figured out small things that end up being big things, like caching. Like, is the stock up to date? They figured out how to combine lots of microservices and render them in a high-performance UI at a global scale. And those are the things that we saw the opportunity to enable. We knew what the best practices were, thanks to open source coming out of these great companies, and we had the opportunity to coalesce them into a framework. So we created Next.js. And the nice thing about Next.js is that it kind of puts into that pit of success of you're embodying and embracing the best practices of Amazon, Google, Facebook without having to go through the journey of reinventing every piece of infrastructure. Right. And that story is resonating much more, and I would say more than any time in the past today, where companies are looking at where each dollar is going and they're asking themselves, should I be reinventing my own frameworks? Should I be creating lots of closed source technology? Should I be creating my own ad hoc platforms if basically I'm trying to deploy a really fast, secure, available e-commerce storefront or marketing initiative? So that front-end opportunity is what we sort of catalyzed. And of course, a front-end is not complete without backends and great services. And MACH Alliance is connecting us, and we're integrating on the technical level and on the partnership level with the best headless companies, whether it's on the CMS side, image management, media management, or just like the commerce and transaction layer. So it's really exciting to sort of all come together in the service of better experiences for customers.
What size have you grown the business to?
So we're up to over 400 employees.
Wow.
We're running some of the largest websites on the internet. So we run several of the top 1,000 and top 10,000 websites by the Chrome User Experience Report on the infrastructure side.
I was going to ask, do you know the number of sites that you're deployed on? Can you tell?
Yeah, we're doing millions of deployments a week of applications. So one thing that Vercel does is that every single change that you make to your application gets deployed in the cloud. And then you can securely share and collaborate with your coworkers on these deployments. So the way that I describe our technology is what Google Docs or Figma did for documents. Imagine if you could do that for your front end and your applications, where every change that you're making becomes a collaborative experience across the entire organization. So that's why we do millions of deployments of applications every week. Yeah, so it's we do 35 billion requests every week as well. Wow. We're operating at planet scale.
That's a serious scale, yeah.
Just to add to what Guillermo just said, just to make it more tangible for folks here in the room and on the live stream, right? When we looked at it in our journey, we chose to build our own front end. We went from no code, no team, no office, just two guys sitting in at a conference room table at the beginning of January 2020 to a full-blown launch in 22 weeks. We looked at the front end as a service. We looked at Next, we looked at Frontastic, Mobilify, and a bunch of other services. And I said, these services are great. They solve a real problem. They're making a big impact. They are just a touch too early for where we were. We were looking at it in late 2019. I knew for a fact that 18 months later they'd be mature and there'd be great alternatives. If I were to start the same thing today, we would go from that same 22-week implementation to a 16-week launch. Nice. That's a pretty significant shrinking of time frame, right? I saw Kelly somewhere in the back there. One of the first sites Kelly and I worked on, it was a 3-year engagement. We had to buy and build everything. Have servers, rack stack servers, make sure that was all verified, vetted, and all those things. Right from hardware, networking, everything had to be done. Nowadays, with the adoption of cloud, with open source, with the millions of deployments, the hundreds of thousands of sites running the same code base, you get the kind of hyperscale that was not possible 10 or 15 years ago. That is what is making this faster and faster.
That's it. Yeah, it's what we're trying to claim at MACH Alliance side, right? That you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to get your PhD just to do relatively simple things, right? So, I think we're taking that message out. We've heard from vendor side. We've heard from practitioner side. We also have systems integration team in the room from EPAM. Ilya, do you want to give us your view on where we're headed here with this MACH adoption and how do you think the benefit can accrue to someone who's going to head out on that journey? How valuable it's going to be for them to take this approach?
Well, the MACH adoption we see around the customers is growing in Europe and North America too, definitely. But there's also common challenges when you start to do the MACH transformation, right? It's, first of all, you can never see it as a pure technology exercise. You have to consider the business side, how you impact, how this transformation would impact your business operations. Because it tends, for example, to blur the line between business and IT organization. And it might have different consequences, like, for example, might create silos, which is especially true for large-scale organization and organization with multiple lines of businesses. Now, with those lines blurred, IT development, IT team tend to group around certain business capabilities, for example, right? Or around certain regional teams, and that's how you create silos, for example. Right. So you have to create a strategy, how you're gonna mitigate it. And you have a strike precise balance between allowing team to exercise their freedom of choice and technology diversity and still enforce some standards.
At EPAM, how do you think about that internally? Do you guys have a division, or do you, how do you determine, say, if a project's going to be a MACH based project, and is it uniquely MACH, and then do you have a team that services around that, or how do you organize around it, I guess?
Well, we do have what we call in EPAM competency center. So we have a dedicated competency center around the MACH, for example, right? Gotcha. So this is sort of an internal community of engineers and practitioners who are working on real projects, helping real customers, like Don Foods, for example, and then take the refined experience and turn it into some internal knowledge, our internal accelerators, know-how, approaches, not to start from ground zero all the time, but to bootstrap and help clients to accelerate it. So that's how we approach our internal learning, for example, right?
Okay.
And then we recommend MACH when we see clients who are looking to disrupt the business, who are looking to build something agile, future-proof ecosystem, right? Something which is flexible, centered around the customer needs. Because what MACH really does help you is to focus on your customer needs, to hear the voice of customer and react on this voice. So that's how we approach it.
Yeah, I suppose that's supposed to be the promise, isn't it? That you get to model your business in the technology and not vice versa. This is kind of one of the promises of MACH, I guess, is what we're saying. Okay, I wanted to nip back quickly to Gireesh and say that some people in the room here could, or some people listening because we're live, could use some guidelines on maybe what not to do as opposed to what to do. Any gotchas or things that you came across that that you could pass on to, or as pitfalls for people to avoid, or anything like that?
Yeah, one of the things that I would start with is, look at your business, see what your business ambition is, and then go the direction of your business ambition wants to go, right? This approach is good. The MACH approach is a great one for businesses that want a differentiated digital experience. If you want your customer to see you as a digital vendor, digital seller of goods and services, as somebody who can innovate digitally and provide self-service capabilities. We're B2B. In B2B, that differentiation is utility. You want your services to be as intuitive and as easy as a utility. You don't have to think about it. You flip the switch on, the lights come on, right? That's utility. It's that level of experience that they are looking for. They have to go run a business. A lot of our customers are, a family business, husband, wife, kids that are working in the bakery, right? They don't have a whole lot of time outside of what they do in the bakery. So for them, any time that takes away from baking or from family is not worth it. So in that context, you have to give them the tools that make it really, really fast, really efficient. It should be better than having them have to pick up a phone, call the sales rep, or send a text message to our sales rep to tell them what they need. So if you can make it better than that, that is a differentiation. Obviously, there are other things. You have to have the supply chain, the fulfillment, the delivery, the tracking, the visibility. All of those things are important. I'm not discounting any of those things. But when you start going down the MACH journey, those are some of the things that you want to consider. You also want to think about things like, what are the limits and constraints of the technologies you're looking at? Not every technology in this space will solve every problem. Even the site we have does not solve every problem for every one of our customers. It solves the problems for most of our customers. That is our goal, right? We want to make sure that we solve the right problems for the right audiences. And if you can solve as many of those problems for as many of your customers as possible using this, great, use it. If not, you should look at something else.
Fair.
I would add to that, one of the things that I was just talking with one of our implementation partners is scoping down the initial transformation. We were able to help a massive retailer with 5 billion in net sales annually evaluate Next.js and Vercel with one page and prove business value with the homepage. Obviously, this is a homepage that drives significant amounts of traffic, significant amounts of conversion. So we're able to run a statistically significant experiment there. But because of that transition that you were mentioning, where a lot of the providers are moving towards APIs, we're able to keep some of the existing technology in place and test it out. Couple API calls, render one page, leverage the Vercel global network to run that experiment, to segment the traffic, and then do the numbers. Does this lift sales? Does this improve conversion? So the smartest companies that I've seen do this transformation have been smart about scoping down. The ambitions might be huge, and of course this goes on to redo the entire storefront and incorporate more of the Mac ecosystem partners. However, you can kind of prove the business value very quickly.
So say you can have a large ambition or a broad ambition.
Yeah, like redo the whole world and change everything into like a fleet of 1 billion microservices, like Elon was talking about.
Yeah.
But you can also say, okay, I'm gonna tackle an important chunk, but scope down. Trulia was one of the earliest adopters of Next.js, and what they did is they redid their sign-up page.
Okay.
The existing system was a PHP monolith. The new system was Next.js, and only the sign-up page was being driven to it. Once they were able to say, okay, like we're converting better. They actually initially weren't able to explain why, because the design was the exact same. Turned out that the performance was so significant that people were dropping off before the page was loading on the original system. So those are the kind of experiments that I recommend versus boiling the ocean and perhaps pushing back deadlines and getting into trouble.
Yeah, that's a quick win then, a significant quick win that you can get.
Significant quick win. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, this is not an all or nothing, right? It's not all Mach or all monolith. You have to pick and choose where Mach makes sense. You have to pick and choose where monoliths make sense. There is no headless ERP, as I know. So you still have a monolith when you get that far down in a company's technology stack. So you have to figure out, where can I apply this? Where is it the right thing to apply versus where can I go leverage something different?
Just to add to that, I think that even though you might start small in terms of a scope, and this is really smart not to boil the ocean, but as you go down to the road of this Mach journey, Mach transformation, the technology becomes more fluent with the business. And then if we're speaking about ambition, you should consider many aspects. You should not, at least I would not advise, to treat Mach transformation as your ecosystem new version, just better technology. No. It's a good opportunity to reconsider your business model. It's a good opportunity to reconsider the value you provide to the customers. It's a good opportunity to think about data and how you treat data, because without data, many things is impossible. And it's a good opportunity to rethink how you approach the development process, right? What is your level of test automation? What is your level of a skill set and maturity of architecture and stuff like that? So taking a holistic approach to different aspects is a key here, and a Mach transformation is a good opportunity to actually change lots of things.
Okay, very good points. Thank you. We don't have a huge amount of time left, but I'm going to use it, if I could, to put you guys on the spot for a little bit. Even less time than I thought. Thank you. So I was going to say, in a couple of sentences, we think we've been on this Mac journey maybe 3.5 years. A lot of us have had sleepless nights and lost lots of energy through the process. Where are we headed for Mac technology in the next 2 years, do we think? We'll start with yourself. What's next?
I think the modern company is realizing the value of developer experience on the way that they engage with the professionals and practitioners. So that's one of the key things we focus on, is we want to enable access to the best talent for the ecosystem to keep folks engaged and delighted by the tools that they use every day. Because at the end of the day, without great developer experience, we believe that a lot of these solutions end up being transient and they end up getting replaced in a year or 2 years. I think on the front end side, that's been the common story, right? Like, I'm on the hottest, latest framework, and then 2 weeks later, I'm on the hottest, latest framework. So I think if we continue to invest in developer experience, that becomes a stable, mature, solid, and it keeps delighting the developer. And then on the other side, we're seeing companies realize, of course, that without user experience, their SEO is being punished. Their users are dropping out. So it's both things. I think the industry as a whole, I think, has sometimes over-focused on one of the two.
Right.
And I think this is to me the recipe for success.
I'm glad you said that as a vendor, to say, obviously I was expecting developer side, but practitioner side is cannot be ignored, or we're all headed really quick. Ilya's got a...
I think the technology will continue to mature, and the tool set will continue to mature, and that would lead to the consequence that idea of composability, of composable enterprises, is going to be growing.
So
For example,
do we think the default is composable in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years?
I think so.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the
Yes.
notion of choosing best of a breed as a component, I think is wrong. It's going to be choosing what is best for you. And that's what many enterprises
Okay.
would actually be able to do as technology matures further.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Gireesh, final word.
This is an evolving space, right? We've seen the evolution happen. E-commerce has changed dramatically in the 10, 15 years we've been doing e-commerce. Some of us longer in the room. What you want to be comfortable with is that this is going to change and evolve. This is changing at a really, really rapid pace. Guess what? The rate of change will never be this slow in the future. The rate of change will never be this slow in the future.
Is everyone writing that down?
Right? So if you're afraid of where this is going, this is only going to go faster. There's a reason why the MACH Alliance chose the
Yeah.
rocket, because once it reaches escape velocity, it can keep going. There's
So get
nothing
on board.
stopping it.
Get on board is what you're saying, Gireesh. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, fine gentlemen. We appreciate it. Thanks everyone for listening and participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.